welcome to another introductory lesson in Adobe Illustrator. Today we're going to be talking about grouping and aligning and distributing objects. Grouping becomes important when you start to develop different rows of items. I touched on this in the alignment and distribution tutorials, but I want to give you examples like this pyramid of circles here. Because there's a couple extra steps that we really didn't talk about yet with Illustrator. So I'm going to get rid of this and we're going to start from scratch. All right, if you are in Illustrator and you go to your shape tool, you could come up with any shape you want. I can use stars. And for now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold Shift key there to make that nice and straight. And that's fine. If I want to change the color, you can change the color to whatever you want. We can just go with something like that. Okay, so if I'm going to make rows of stars, like let's say you were working on a flag or something like that, and you need to have a bunch of rows of stars, you would have to copy and paste your stars. You can either hit Command C, Command V, or if you're on a PC, it'd be Control C, Control V. You could also hold the Option key on the keyboard, and if you look at my cursor, when I hold Option key, it turns into this kind of double-headed arrow. And now when I click and drag, it's creating a copy of that. So you can do that as well, or you can just hit Command C, Command V. Now, if I'm making a bunch of copies of something, if I have two, then I will select both of those and then make 4 and so on. So I'm just going to make a row of, I don't know, 6 or so stars there. And these might be aligned, but I'm going to check. I'm going to go to my Align panel, or if you have your Properties window open, actually there's my Align window. The Properties window is open. You can see the Align tools over here, or I do enjoy having this window open because I use it a lot, so I'll use my Align, and then I'm going to use my Distribute. So there's going to be a little bit of movement on, the Distribute. It's it's aligning to, whenever something goes weird like that, always check and see that you have this align to, because we were kind of messing around with that in some of the other tutorials. If this is on the wrong thing, you'll notice before when I clicked my align tool, the stars all ended up on top of each other, and they should have just been spaced out like they are now. If you don't see this down in the corner there, you have to go to where it would say show options, and then you'd see it. If I do hide options now, it goes away. There's your show options. Okay, so now I have these aligned because I hit here and distributed there, and they look great. And I have my row of stars. Now, if I want to make multiple rows, I would need to take this whole row, and now I can copy and paste it. But there's something I didn't do. And you'll notice now if I take these rows, and I'll make another copy there, and we'll have 3 rows of stars. It's wonderful. That if I want to kind of distribute and align these rows so that they're all lined up along the edge over here, if I click my align to left, all the stars, every single one of them just got bunched up to the left. It didn't really do what I wanted it to do. And the reason for that is grouping. I did not group my stars. So when I get done with one row, so I just hit undo a few times to get back to this row of stars. If I take my row and I select all of them, I'm going to want to group it. Okay, you can do that a couple ways. You can either right click and go to group, and I think that's what most people do, or you can hit Command G. Command G is the command for grouping. It would be Control G on a Mac, and that's a pretty universal thing in a lot of different programs. Use Command G. So now, if it's grouped, when I select one object, I select them all. And what happens is, if I make a bunch of copies of these rows here, and I'm just going to throw a bunch of rows out here. I might have made 4 or 5 copies, I'm not sure. Okay, so if I make a bunch of rows, now when I select all my rows, I can select them with the black arrow, and I hit align left. They will now align left without all the stars bunching up like they did before, and I could distribute these, and now I have a nice field stars. Now, this doesn't look like the pyramid. And what happens is that, let's say we want to do like stars on the American flag. Now, this obviously would not be enough stars for the American flag, and that's always a nice project to do, like with my students. If you can make the American flag like perfectly, then I know you know how to use the align and distribute tools pretty well. What you could do though is if you take the white selection tool, the direct selection tool, and you click right on the star and hit delete, you can get rid of a couple stars out of a group without selecting the entire group. If I select these with the black selection tool or the regular selection tool, we will now, you'll see that this row is still grouped. Okay, even though I just took one star out of it with the direct selection tool. So that's a good thing to know. Because now what you could do is, let's say you were doing like a staggered field where the stars are going to, like in one row are going to be, there's 6 and then 5 and 6 and 5, but you want them centered. You could do that by going to your align window, and we would be picking the centered align, and now you can see that these stars are all lined up and centered on each other, and that has more of a feel of what you would find in our flag. Okay, so that's how you would use that. Now, if I was making like a pyramid shape, I could do this. I could use the same idea, and I would take an extra star, out of each row. And so this one, so I'm just using the direct selection tool, and I'm deleting stars out of the group. Remember, these were still groups. And let me just select a bunch of these stars here at once, and this one, and I think I made a mistake here, so I'm going to take one more out of each row. Okay, so now I have, it's 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and if I wanted these to go into a shape of a pyramid, it would be centered on itself. So I'm going to use a line to center. All right, it's been distributed the whole time, but so we'll click on that just in case I accidentally move something, and there we go. Now I have this nice pattern of stars all centered on each other. So when you're using a line, you're going to want to use grouping to get this way. Okay? All right, that's today's lesson. Have a good day.